I've always said, that being with the company that we are a self-improvement company. I truly believe that, with a compensation plan attached. So when we go ahead and go through these meetings, it's really to give you some insight on what it is to be part of the licensing arena, but also how we can get better people, right? Become better, stronger, faster. It's all about self-improvement. This is the year of excellence. And I coined that early on. I just feel that, everybody has that potential to do something amazing this year. We have the platform for that. And I want to really get into what's in a name. And I say it's all in a name. We talk about real estate brokers, there's insurance brokers, there's business brokers, there's franchise brokers, there's auto brokers. Yes, I think there's even jewelry brokers, right? Our identity at Advanced Licensing, we've been saying for so long that we're a licensing agent. Well, I think we need to change that. We really have to go through a shift. And I think the right terminology is licensing broker or licensed broker. I think they're both one of the same. And there's a reason why I like this migration to being a broker. First of all, it brings credibility. Being a licensing broker, I think it also brings legitimacy to what we're doing. It is a empowering name. And I think that that's the way people interpret it. And, from this point forward, I think our identity is going to be licensing broker opposed to agent. Now, early on, I remember why we chose agent over broker. And it was just because some people feel that you need a license, believe it or not, like a real estate license to be a real estate broker. But that's not the case in being a licensing broker. Yes, we have training. We make sure people get certified and, they go through the due diligence and get the training on ethics. But the terminology, I think, is very empowering. So being a licensing broker, there's a couple things that we need to do. Number one is it brings a license opportunity to a prospect to determine a good fit. That's our role, right? Being a licensing broker is presenting an opportunity for someone to get in business for themselves. And really our job is to really decide if it is a good fit. And we're going to talk about, who do you work for? Now, the question, do you really, as a licensing broker, do you work for the company you're representing, or do you work for your client? And we're gonna kind of drill that down a little bit. We talked, and a lot of you are familiar with Main Street Chamber Business Brokers, and that's by design. The business brokers, because we have really the four pillars: licensing, business brokerage, franchising, and commercial real estate. Now, this year, we're diversifying. We committed to that last quarter of last year, and we feel that right now we need to be diversified. We're going to have some people get very serious about business brokerage, putting a buyer and seller together. Do you need a license? Well, if you're dealing in real estate, when that transaction takes place, you do need a license. But there are many applications where you're putting a buyer and a seller together. You don't need a license. But when we talk about it, there's a licensing broker, business broker, franchise broker, and commercial real estate broker. In about another month from now, we're going to be representing over 400 franchises that are in business. And believe it or not, people are buying franchises every week, week in and week out. I'm blown away at how many franchises are out there that I've never heard of before that people are buying. So I just think as us as a company and our identity is we need to have every facet of these four pillars. We have to really be versatile. I think it's going to make a big difference. What's the responsibilities of a broker? Now, of course, and I want to drill this down a little bit, because if somebody's going to come on board with you, we have a responsibility to make sure that your client, which I truly believe at the end of the day is who you're working for, you're trying to find your client the right business that suits their lifestyle, suits their comfortability, fits their lifestyle, fits their budget, right? So encourage due diligence. Why? Well, first of all, it creates transparency. When you're open and you tell a prospect, your potential client, to look behind the curtain, see what the company's all about. That's giving transparency. It builds confidence in the process. It builds confidence in you. It also aligns yourself with the client when you encourage to do due diligence. It's okay. You want somebody to really take those steps, uncover the opportunity, because I truly believe that anybody that comes on board, they've done some due diligence. Nobody today is going to say, yes, sign me up here. Where do I send the money? Nobody's waiting on the phone with a checkbook in hand, right? But I truly believe that the due diligence process is needed to convert, needed for someone to come on board and purchase a licensed opportunity. So when we talk about due diligence, and I'll just open it up right here. Anybody have any questions or comments before I get into what that looks like?
Hey, John,
Go ahead.
I'm going to be getting off at 11:20. We're going to be doing another Main Street Chamber orientation for chapter presidents. I just want to say this opportunity also to be a brokerage, to be able to recruit other brokers. I just want to let you know that Aaron is going to send you a copy replay. If you want to recruit other brokers in your brokerage, on your team, you'll be able to use the Main Street Chamber as a system. And so, again, I don't want you to come off of this call, but Aaron will send you a replay and you can use that to build your team. Because what we know is, in addition to selling opportunities, we're looking for more companies that want to expand nationally through licensing. And once you're a broker, who are you going to sell? Who are you going to sell business opportunities to? Who are you going to help expand? Well, as a chapter president, you have unlimited leads. And so just as an example, John, there's 4 people on this call right now that we just met about an hour ago that got excited about the opportunity to be a licensing broker. And you'll be able to use this same system to build your team if you're into recruiting. And I just want to mention that, John, because I'm going to be hopping off here in about 8 minutes.
No, quite all right. Understand. And it is about team building, and we really make an emphasis, and we talk about that very often. So yes, welcome to the, it's not about, yes, you being an agency, you being a broker, you lead by example, you can team build. People will follow the leader. Leaders lead. But I always say leaders lead by example. And that's how you build a solid team. And we have some licensing brokers, agencies that have built a tremendous team. And maybe it's a licensing brokerage is the correct terminology. But welcome, chapter presidents Daphne and Fred. I know you guys are doing a great job already building your members. Joanne, welcome. Sorry if I didn't catch everyone, but we'll continue on here, because I do want to really make sure that when we talk about again, due diligence, what does that look like? Let's have a checklist. When we tell a client to do their due diligence, what does that mean? What does that really come down to? Well, first of all, they got to review the collateral material. Everything that you send to them, you want to make sure that they review it, that they know exactly what they're getting, what's involved, and it's laid out. That's the collateral material. That's very important. We want to make sure that part of that due diligence is to watch an update meeting. Now, these companies that we represent periodically have update meetings where anybody who's purchased a license from that company, they have a meeting, meeting of the minds. But what it does is really show a prospect that it's a real business, that there's other people that have purchased this business, and usually get a good update of where the company is. So watching update meetings is part of that due diligence process. Also speak to licensees. Most people do want to speak to somebody that purchased, and it's okay. That's what we want. We don't, in April she purchased a territory, and she's very open to speaking to prospects that ask her, why did she do it? Why are you on the team? Why did you purchase a territory? And we don't tell people what to say and what not to say, but with these licensees, they share why they came on board. And a lot of times it's because they trusted the company, the transparency, all the reasons that we talked about is why they move forward. They went through the due diligence process and every box was checked. That's how somebody's going to come on board. They may want to speak to the owner, the CEO of the company. We know with Aloha, it's Daniel Ellis. We know Cozy Venn. Larry's kind of spearheading that. Main Street Chamber, it's Jason Sampson. And Sunset is Josie Laposa. So a lot of, hey, that's nice. These owners are willing to speak to your prospects, part of the due diligence. Also, part of the due diligence is know the risk. Explain to them that there's risk. And we're just going to spend a minute talking about risk, but also know the upside. How much can I lose? How much can I make? That's what people really ultimately want to know. And legal advice. Now, again, you can't, if someone wants to, they have somebody that wants to look at the paperwork. Let's face it, the license agreement is a lot different than a franchise agreement. Franchise agreement is it's a thick book. A license agreement, it's 10 pages. It's okay for someone that's doing their due diligence to have someone look at that paperwork. We don't discourage that. That's okay. That's part of the due diligence process. We don't need to shy away from that. That's part of it. It's okay. Questions, comments on due diligence, that checklist? Okay. All right. Let's talk about the risk, because I think this is important. Everybody gets in business and there's, is the business high risk? Is it a calculated risk? Is there no risk? There's always risk, right? I don't know where you can put your money nowadays and not have some type of risk. And one thing we cannot do is provide any guarantees that someone will be successful, that a company will be successful, because you don't have a crystal ball, right? Mine's in the shop. I can't tell you who's going to be successful and who's not. But when you talk about risk in life, if you eliminate risk, you also eliminate the opportunity. That goes hand in hand. Show me something with no risk, and I'll show you a glorified savings account, which nowadays, because interest rates have gone up, your money's making a little bit more money, but based on the cost of inflation, you keep your money in the bank long enough, guess what? You're going to go broke. So when we talk about risk, know what's out there. And you can really weigh the risk versus the reward. Our role is to give the information so someone can make an educated, well-informed decision and calculate the risk. That's due diligence. It's very important. So when we talk about upside, because remember, talk about risk, there is an upside. So when you're stating an upside potential, And I've been one to tell people the truth. And the truth is always a good place to start, right? You got to give a disclaimer. I always say past performance is not indicative of future results. What somebody else did does not mean that you're going to do it. I can tell you this right now, Josie Laposa, working out of her small 400 square foot location, doing the sculpting business, contouring business, it's making over $20,000 a month. She's maxed out. You can only do 2 at one time. She has 2 other technicians working with her. She's pretty much, she can do a little bit more out of that location, but right now her problem is her location isn't big enough. But even in saying that, I will disclaim and say, hey, just because Josie does it doesn't mean you're going to do it. It takes work. You got to know the business. You got to build a team. There's some variables in there. Throw in the disclaimer. You cannot give one side of the story without the other, and vice versa. So when we talk about it, you can't guarantee results or success. It's that simple. So you got to love it. And here's what I'll tell you. We've created some bulletproof businesses before, and there's still an X factor. And what I mean by that is when we put Ideal Furniture on the map, we created such a business that gave somebody the support, the training, the knowledge, the know-how, every advantage possible to go out there and earn a serious income in the mattress furniture business. And guess what? People failed. People failed. Now, we didn't guarantee success. We had many examples of success. We could point to somebody and say, hey, call that person, ask them what they're doing. We had a whole sheet of people that were successful, but not everybody was. Why? Well, when somebody failed, here's the reality. Everything's about reality today, right? Is we gave them everything that they needed to be successful. There was nothing wrong with the business model, the company, the industry, the support. If somebody failed, guess what? Usually came down to the individual person. So even though we created a bulletproof business, it did not guarantee success because the X factor, the person working the business might not have had the business excitement or commitment or the discipline to be a business owner. Did it fall back on us? Sometimes people tried to blame us, right? I mean, that's what people do. It's not my fault. I did everything you told me to. Oh, no, you didn't. If you did, you would be successful. But we handle that. We don't shy away from that. If somebody does not succeed, we don't shy away from that. There's a reason. So understand downside, upside, the sales process. And for a lot of the chapter presidents that are going to be presenting and getting involved in the licensing arena, the sales process encompasses that due diligence throughout the process. And I've realized over the years, there is no shortcut to this sales process. If you find a shortcut that makes sense and doesn't take away from the quality of taking a prospect from A to Z, I'm open to it. But I don't want to take a shortcut and not give the prospect what they deserve because I'm working for them. And that's the mindset I got to have. Who do you represent? The company or the prospect? As a broker, your job, your responsibility is to really be on the side of your prospect and get them the best possible business that's going to suit them and their family. And I can tell you this, you'll have a client for life.